I wasn't prepared to.
Neither was I. So,
Jani, why don't you
yeah,
introduce yourselves
you guys can
as you would
introduce
like to be
yourselves.
known? That's
Okay, well, so some people here already heard our 17-second introduction, but I am Jani Jackson with Develop Your Team, and I work with all types of organizations to help people work together more effectively so that they can achieve amazing things and move mountains. And I'm so excited to work with Juan today because we I just really love the way he has blended the change management part of what I'm going to talk about with the marketing aspect.
Cool, everybody. I'm Juan Velasco, as I mentioned earlier, and my company really focuses on helping businesses increase their profitability by using strategies that normally don't require any marketing or advertising or spending amount, right? Just to really focusing on the fundamentals of business. But we'll get started if that's okay with the group. Do I got to go? Perfect. Well, perfect. Thank you, everybody, again for the opportunity to be able to present. And yes, like Jenny said, we definitely combined some great content for you today. And really, the topic today is small business and marketing during and after COVID, right? Because we really have seen through this past year, obviously, we're navigating through the new normal, right? Pivot is a very important word. So we got to be able to understand, how we can be able to market our business. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So today's game plan is going to be pretty straightforward. So one is going to be exploring the three elements of change management. And it's going to be really great because we're going to be able to also blend that into understanding the buyer's journey. And what that is really, being able to know where your prospects are in that decision making, right? Especially with all the changes that just occurred through the pandemic. And then third, we're going to actually use those change management strategies that you're actually all going to learn today. And, how can we influence the consumer buying behavior, right? Because we got to utilize with the changes that have occurred with, how can we get more customers? So I'm going to switch it over to Jenny.
All right. So let's see. I'm going to, sorry. We had this interesting screen sharing plan that's not going to work out quite like we planned, but that's perfectly fine. So the first thing that I want to talk about is this change management philosophy that is really applicable in all kinds of situations. If you're looking to make a personal change or in your family or an organization, the concept applies across the board. And this book, we have the picture of the book Switch. It's really based on this book, but I got my book out because I want you to see like all my little tabs. Like this is a well-loved book in my household. So the first thing that I would ask you to do is close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to imagine something. So, okay, close your eyes and imagine that you are watching an elephant, a massive 6-ton elephant walking down a path. So there's vegetation around. Your vegetation might be jungle, it might be grasses. Get a really good picture of that. And now you're watching this elephant and you see that the elephant has a rider sitting on it. And so the rider is a human being, but the human being's little sitting on top of that elephant because this elephant is huge. That's the metaphor that we're going to use to talk about change management today. So now you can open your eyes, if you will, and I am going to, I'm going to share my screen. So Juan, could you stop sharing real quick and I will share mine. Okay. So we're going to talk about, okay, we're thinking about that metaphor, the elephant and the rider, and these are the three elements of change management that we're going to talk about. And so it's three keys. The first aspect of it is that in order to make a change, you need to direct the rider. Now, the rider represents the rational part of our brain. It's the part that likes to deliberate, to analyze, to think things through, think about the future, plan, and all great characteristics. But you might recognize that sometimes if we get stuck in rider mode, nothing ever happens. So that's where we need the second element of change, which is motivating the elephant. And the elephant represents the emotional side of our brain. So the elephant feels pain or pleasure. The elephant likes instant gratification, and the elephant's about the short term. So in our little image, we've got the rider, we've got that rational part, but we're trying to get that elephant to move. And when the elephant and the rider disagree, what do you think happens?
The elephant wins.
The elephant wins. That's right. So we got to get them working together. We have to get to get those benefits of the rider with the planning and the direction, but we need the elephant's energy because the elephant is what helps us get things done. And then the third element is shaping the path. And when you think about that image you had in your head of the elephant walking through, whatever type of vegetation, if the elephant runs into obstacles, it's not going to be able to reach the goal. And so when you're thinking about your whole change management strategy, that third element is really critical too. How can you remove the obstacles to make it easy for the elephant to go the direction that you want it to? So now on this slide, the reason that I have this up here, partly so you can look at the three different areas, but I want you to actually use the annotation tool in Zoom, and I'm going to have you mark up this slide and make it a lot prettier. So if you have not used the annotation or you need a refresher, when at the top of my screen, you should see a little green bar that says that you're looking at my screen. And to the right of that is a black bar that says view options. Click on that, drop down, and there's one of those options is annotate. Click on annotate, and you're going to get a toolbar. So what I'm going to invite you to do is think about your own experiences with change and these three elements, and where are you most likely to get stuck? And so you can either use the stamp button and maybe put a star or a heart or whatever you want somewhere on here. You can use the text and type in some comments about why you get stuck there if you'd like. And also feel free to put comments in the chat if that's going to work better for you. But I'm going to say I get stuck directing the rider. So I'm putting a stamp there. But let's see. Let's see what people think. And if you use the text box, you type in the text box, and then when you click out of it is when it shows up. So good job. Anybody want to comment? Yeah, I like giving clear directions difficult. Articulating what's in my head. So we're kind of all over the place, right? We have people, I see little marks in a lot of different places. And this is cool. I'm going to capture this. And then we're going to move on. Okay, so Juan, I'm going to turn it back over to you, and let's see, I probably need to stop sharing so that you can start.
Let's see here. Cool, perfect. So that's really interesting, right? So we were, kind of in different segments of those three parts of change management, and then how does that obviously correlate to like marketing and how to adjust it? Well, this is kind of a funny fact or kind of a big fact. We're on consumers on average, right now they're seeing about 4,000 to 10,000 ads per day. This was a study done last year around July. Now, what does this mean, right? Because the pandemic has forced everyone, to change and to pivot, right? We continue to hear that word. So with people being online, guess what that produced, right? There's a lot more people advertising online, right? Now we see these big players advertising on Facebook as well and on Google, Yelp, you name it, there's someone is advertising on it, right? Trying to get people's attention. Now, what we really have to really consider is essentially the consumer behavior has changed, right? So this is another study by the New Hope Network that was done, and it was a survey that they performed with individuals that they, going through the pandemic. Now, they say they're more stressed than compared to 2019, right? And there's coping mechanisms that we all have, right? And this then changes our behavior, and one of the most important things that we have to remember as behavior changes, as Jenny outlined, we have to address the rider, the elephant, and then also the obstacles, right? One of the most important things when trying to get customers or prospects is there's really three parts, right? You obviously have to know who your target market is, which is really important, right? Who is that specific individual? And then also, where are they, right? What podcasts are they listening to? What hobbies? So as you see on your screen, what activities are they doing, right? There's an increase, like in DIY projects, right? What books are they reading? Even we talked about exercising, right? That's something some individuals aren't doing, but they've pivoted, they've changed. So really, we really need to understand what are they doing and, where are they? The other element that's really important is your message, right? One of the best things that I like to tell individuals is when trying to create your message is really to enter the conversation that's occurring in your prospect's mind, right? And then I always get, that's great, Juan, but I'm not a mind reader. I'm not a hypnotist. How the heck do I do that? Well, with the graph that you have in front of you, so we know where they're at, right? We know what they're doing. And it's really easy to enter into conversation of your prospect's mind. There are really only two things going on in your prospect's mind. It's really straightforward. The number one is that they have a problem that they don't want, right? And then number two is there's a result that they want but don't have. So as you see right now, like on the screen, so they're more stressed, right? So there's also problems that they want, that they have but don't want, right? So the number one way to do that is to address it, right? Is to address that problem. Then you make that psychological connection with them. And then the number two then is you want to address that result that they want and don't have. So by understanding the behavioral of the consumer, you tend to start knowing what the problem is, and then what's the result that they'd have. Um, so now we're going to go in a little bit deeper into this because really we have a challenge, right? With what Jani described, and then now we know that the consumer behavior has changed, right? They were we were kind of forced to change, right? A lot of it wasn't by choice, and I think we're still going to see more behavior change throughout this year as well. So the challenge really becomes, how do we get the attention of your prospect, right? And as Jenny described, so now we have these two elements, right, that we just learned. So we have this, right, we have the rider and the elephant, right? So we have these two parts that we have to answer to. And this is what's going on in everybody's, thought process. Now this is the challenge. So now we got to compete with all these ads, right? Because everyone's spending thousands of dollars and millions of dollars on advertising, specifically Facebook. And this is interesting. So our attention span is actually decreasing. Yes, it is a generational, but our attention span is about 8 seconds now. So now we have to contend to that as well. And then now also, as we've seen, with everything that's going on, a lot of individuals are just postponing, just purchasing certain discretionary products because of the shutdown, right? There were businesses forced to change, to adapt. The consumer behavior is not going to become or return to the same anymore. So we have to contend to that, right? And also social networking sites. This fact was interesting. So there's more social networking sites, and we're going to see more increase of them where people are going to segregate to. And that's something that we got to contend to too, right? Because we got to find where they're at, right? And then also internet users. This forced a lot of individuals online, which they really at one point, didn't think of doing. So we have to contend to that. And of course, internet users are just going to continue to increase as more generational kicks in, right? We're going to have this whole new generation of COVID babies, right? So this is going to just increase more transition over to internet as well. So this is really the challenge that we have. So how do we incorporate with what we learned with what Jani said in to solve our challenge? So this is what we got to contend. We got to contend with the rider and the elephant, right? So we got motivation, as Jenny described, and we also need a clear direction and a direct path, right? So we really got to change that behavior of our prospects. So how do we do that? So let's take it just a little bit deeper. This is what Jani, described. So we really got to direct the rider, right? We got to give him a clear direction. And then we got to motivate the elephant. When I was working with Jani and I read the book, one thing that just stood in my mind was, once you're able to motivate that elephant, it's a 6-ton elephant, like Don mentioned earlier, the elephant's going to win, but it's this huge 6-ton elephant just charging down the road. But then if you don't direct the rider, the elephant's going to run into the bushes or it's going to hit, some sort of log and trip, right? So we have to contend to both. And then of course you want to be able to shape the path. So it's really interesting if we really take these three elements when communicating with our prospects, if it's verbally, if it's on our marketing, it's just a matter of keeping them all aligned, which is extremely really powerful. If you really look at all marketing messages, they're giving the writer a clear direction, and they're motivating the elephant and also shaping the path as well. So this essentially really is a solution to be able to, adjust our messaging to be able to get prospects. Now, this is something I love to be able to share with you is what I call is the buyer's journey. What I see a lot with all the prospects is normally, and the perfect example is a website. So when I see a prospect's website, right, or most businesses, they're always targeting to the now buyer, right? That individual that just buys, or like right now. the only thing that's only about 1%, right? That's like when you order a pizza, you jump on the website, you don't think about it, you just buy it, right? Or if your tooth hurts, and you got to get a root canal, you just go on your dentist, you call, and you book that appointment. The problem with that is when our messaging is just general, we're only pushing towards a now buyer, but we have to think about now the rider and the elephant, right? So 99% of the consumers out there are future buyers, meaning they're just thinking, why should I buy? And then you have to, walk them through that process, right? And then the next step is, why shouldn't I buy? Right. So that's that next logical question that they're asking that you have to be able to answer them. And it's a nurturing process, right? To eventually get them over to the now buyers. So I really want you to look at your messaging, if it's, your 70-second commercial, if it's your, your marketing message, whatever they may be, and just don't focus on the now buyers, focus on the 99%, because then that's where really your potential prospects are, right? And then I'm going to let Jani give some comments as well.
Okay. So as you are looking at this diagram that Juan put up there, and you're thinking about future buyers, for example, why should I buy, or soon to be buyers? And what I want you to do is think about it in terms of the elephant and the rider and the path. And feel free to take yourself off mute because this is a group participation part. But where in that buyer's journey, where do you see the rider show up? Where do you see the elephant show up? What part has to do with the path? What are your thoughts? And there are no right answers. Just making that clear. That's why we're not telling you, we're asking you because we want to see what you're thinking about.
I'll tell you what I'm thinking about is the attention that people have, or lack of attention, really. So that 8-second piece is critically important. And I actually think the attention is less than that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's closer to maybe 5 seconds. And I actually kind of observe myself sometimes, especially on social media, which I pretty much regulate, just spend time on LinkedIn. But the message needs to be crystal clear and quick and have impact, and also somehow build into it some sort of CTA, call to action, which is really, really important. So, may not be a part of this conversation, but, getting back to the 17-second commercial or elevator speech is really important.
Well, so do you see that as, so your clear call to action, did you see that as part of the rider, part of the elephant? Where do you see it fit? The path?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I'm not real clear about the distinction between both.
Okay. Thank you. That's fair, because that means we could talk about that a little bit more. Anybody else have thoughts about that? Like where do you see the getting people's attention?
I see on who should I buy from, how to differentiate myself from the rest.
Mm-hmm.
That concentrate on what to do and how to take something dry as accounting and make it interesting.
Yeah. So there's kind of that combination there, right? So if you think about the rider on the elephant, the rider's steering things, the rider's deciding where we're going. That's the rational part. So that's the giving clear direction, or and the why should I do it? But the elephant is the emotional part. And what you were talking about, John, is, I could see the call to action being both. It's giving it clear direction and saying, here's the path, here's what you want to do and why it's going to benefit you to purchase from me, but the call to action is like reaching the heart. It's why is it going to make a difference for you? And that's the elephant. That's motivating the elephant.
That's the emotional connection.
That's the emotional connection. But the reason that we're putting this out to all of you is because there's different elements, different ways to look at all of it.
So
Absolutely.
what strikes me is I'm looking at the emotional versus the rational components. And, I guess my experience is that the future buyers are more rational and the now buyers are more emotional. So once, I mean, like I've met prospects, like I had a prospect that I met with last week, right? And she had already made up her mind about the benefits. She knew why she wanted to buy, and she had some questions about objections, but she was down to who should I buy from, and it was kind of an emotional. It was just do I connect with you, kind of a thing. Well, with business consulting, it's more like that. But there's some, other components about, well, what's your background and, what have you worked with businesses like mine and things like that. So there's some objections that are rational, but then it in the end, it comes down to the emotional, do I connect with you? Should I buy from you? So that's kind of the experience. So I'm not sure where shaping the path, but I guess it's, reducing obstacles, making journey down. Yeah. So it's, I mean, you either connect or you don't. you either make that emotional connection and they're like, okay, I can relate to this person and he or she has some value to offer, right? Or you screw that up.
Yeah. Well, and Juan has got a couple of examples, and I think that that's going to help us get a better idea also about how we might shape the path. So Juan, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Cool. Thank you, Jenny. So this is kind of cool because now that we have that image of the rider, the elephant, right? So we have the logical side of it, that we got the emotional, and then the path. So this is a great example. So what I kind of want you to do is kind of, where do you see, kind of the same question, because they're all, these elements will be present here. So where do you see like the writer being present in this ad? And just feel free to speak up. So where's a writer on this one?
What part is speaking to your rational side?
Yeah.
$50 off first visit.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So then what about the elephant, like the emotional side? Like what engages you with that?
Free.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My
The,
kids.
the customer testimonial there on the bottom.
Yeah.
On the side there.
Yeah.
That's the emotional part.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love my dentist.
Yeah. I think all the smiling
dentist?
faces too,
And the
right?
smiling faces.
Yeah. Now, do you
And I
guys?
think that giving your family, like everybody wants to give their family the best. And so I can give this to my family. Like my family needs healthy white smiles. And so that's an emotional, especially I think for a mother, that's an emotional aspect. Like I want to give this to my family. And the rational is I can do this at a lower cost, especially where we are right now. They need this, it's that needs versus a want. And sometimes our wants, we convince ourselves that they're needs. So my family needs this. It moves from the want, and I can do it at a lower cost because the reality is I may have less discretionary income right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome, Leslie.
That's awesome. Yep. Absolutely.
So
go ahead.
no,
Jenny.
go ahead, Juan.
I'll let you go.
I was just going to say, okay, so now this is the perfect time to bring up what Don was just talking about with the path.
Mhm.
Because when I look at this ad, I wonder how easy is it going to be to connect with and buy from this dentist?
Right. Yeah, because remember, we want to shape the path, and the John mentioned earlier, you want to have a CTA, a call to action as well, right? Because that's, essentially, part of that path as well. Because you want to remember your end goal, is obviously to get that customer. So is there a clear path on how to, get those smiley faces for your family? Do you guys see that?
I don't think there is one.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No phone number. I mean, of course, I don't know where this is being displayed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
But that's,
yeah.
yeah, that's the point, exactly. We look at, from what we're given here, there is no path.
Right. So we'll go into the second one. So this is another template that we use. So here again, the writer, the rational side, which part talks to the writer, to the rational side here?
Or the elephant or the rider.
the
Like
elephant,
what do
yeah.
you observe? What stands out to you on this one?
Pain.
Pain. Yeah.
Pain, right? Is that,
Yeah.
that's gonna be speaking to the elephant, right?
Yeah.
'Cause
Oh,
the
yeah.
elephant feels the pain.
And then you get the big free in there.
Free consultation. Could be both,
Yeah.
elephant and the rider.
Mhm.
I agree, because on the last one, mentioning like the free and the discounting, but yeah, correct. I mean, it could be both, the rider and elephant on that free. Absolutely. And
What
then
about the path?
yeah. What about the path on this one?
Well, the path is easy because I can just call that number right now. It's easy.
Right,
It's
right.
big. There's a contrast in color. It's right next to the free, and it almost it clears a path, but it speaks to that emotion. I don't have to work very hard to get something free to deal with my pain.
Absolutely.
I have
Yeah,
a little
that's
bit
great.
of a comment and an opinion.
Mhm.
So suffering sudden or chronic pain, question mark. That normally, that is a question that somebody will answer in their own mind.
Yes.
The second, and then the line will help you take control. I would have much rather have seen the call to action right under there,
Mm. Mhm.
because if we have 8 seconds, it's going to take me longer than 8 seconds to kind of get through the rest of it.
Yeah.
But that's just not just, but that's an opinion.
No, absolutely.
My frame of mind is make it about them and make it simple and easy and fast.
Absolutely.
Great
Absolutely.
point.
Oh yeah, excellent point. Yep, absolutely. And like you all mentioned, they have a number, they have a website, they got their address, they got the name, so they're really making it relatively pretty easy to be able to communicate. So we'll move on to the next slide. So after seeing that, really, so how do we correlate together and make it really easy, right? And kind of put it all together. So this essentially is really the key to marketing messages, and something that you can evaluate your messages as well. I call them the marketing conversion equation. And this kind of goes back to what John just said right now. You want to be able to interrupt, right? Because you've got less than 8 seconds. And I truly believe that as well, John. So you want to get the attention of the writer, right? So if it is stating their problem normally, right, that they have and they don't want, and then you want to engage with them, right? And now that you got their attention, kind of like, well, just like John mentioned about the previous ad, now we got to motivate the elephant, right? So now we have to, state the solution or the result that they want but don't have. So now we tag team. Now we have the rider and the elephant, and then we educate. Now, education information is the best way to be able to start giving them a clear direction, right? And now, if it's that, either how do they come in contact with you, or how you're able to stand apart from everybody else, right? How are you able to become that expert where they can choose you from everybody else? So you want to be able to educate. That's extremely important. And then the very last one, which usually it's the first one that businesses do, but it's the offer, right? You want to shape a clear path. And you'll be surprised if you start looking at this at a lot of marketing messages at websites, you'll see that they don't follow this order. But this is a really powerful process that you can apply to all your marketing, and you'll be able to identify, where, am I getting the attention of the rider? Am I motivating the elephant, or am I giving a clear path? And essentially, the offer is essentially all three. It kind of combines, because remember, you got the rider, the elephant, and then you got the clear path, right? So you got to keep that momentum of all three. So it's extremely important to kind of just keep those conscious, the rider, elephant, and the direction constantly throughout the whole buyer's journey. So just kind of a recap. It's really, we see this, and you can apply this in every single part of our lives. Now, my wife, if you ever talk to her, she knows I'm always talking. I always remind her, I'm speaking to the rider, or I got to motivate my elephant, or I got to shape the path, right? And you can apply this to all different aspects of your life. I'm using this as I talk to my son, right? I got to motivate his elephant to, get him moving along, or, to kind of switch direction. But this is something that we can use in different part of our lives, and just be conscious about, we got that rider and the 6-ton elephant, and we got to shape that path to be able to overcome resistance. And so we'll open it up. Thank you very much. And we'll open it up for questions. I'll stop sharing my screen here. Alrighty. Okay, cool.
Questions, ideas about how you can apply the concept?
So this was kind of a merge between change management and marketing, but it was funny. Once we started digging into it, you'll see it everywhere. If you're motivating the rider, the elephant. Any comments? Looks like John has to go.
Who's going?
I think John said he has to go.
Yeah, John O'Reilly.
John O'Reilly. Oh,
well,
sorry,
thanks
John.
everybody.
Yeah,
I think it's extremely helpful. It's something, it's like the question, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? So, gratefully this will be up on the chamber website, but I want to spend some time with it, and I want to spend some time with it. I really like it.
Yeah.
And I love elephants.
I thought it was actually excellent. So we're a nonprofit pregnancy medical clinic. So I have two sides. We have to market to our patients, but I also have to market to donors, because as a nonprofit, we don't have our patients. I guess you would consider a customer, but our donors, you have to market to them. And they have a lot of people right now vying for the same amount of money. North County is not a big area, and you have a lot of nonprofits with great causes. And so I see how to, and they're being inundated too. You always think of the younger generation with such a short attention spans, but really our donors do too, because they're getting so much. So I see its benefit actually to both. In fact, when my staff comes in for a staff meeting is, okay, so in this patient, how do we direct her, in this situation? But for the donors, why do you want to donate to us in 8 seconds? I have 8 seconds to motivate them to donate to us and see the value. And most of theirs is, when you're, and most of you guys know this, is you speak to a woman's emotions and a man's checkbook. That's, you have to reach that man's logical, why does this make sense to me? and more of a woman, she's more emotionally based. And so I see this, how it could be very beneficial. So thank you so much. The post-COVID is just so hard right now in all businesses, but really marketing to people to want to give to you, because again, financial instability is so high, and 2021 started off with a stutter. So anyway, so thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Absolutely.
Yeah, we're glad for it to be helpful. That's the goal.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you, Juan and Jani, very much. As John mentioned, this will get posted at the Chamber website, so you can view it again, listen to it again.
And
So,
share it with other people, really.
yes, right. You can share
And
that.
Dawn, let me mention too, the Chamber does have a YouTube channel. Okay. So if you just go to YouTube and just do a search for Carlsbad Chamber, it'll come right up. So everything that has ever been posted to YouTube, which ends up on the website, is up on YouTube, which sometimes is a lot easier to get through, and of course, searchable as well.
Very
That is
good.
helpful.
Perfect. Yeah, I didn't know
Again,
that.
Jani,
Thank you, John.
And we'll see you all next month. Our